It's the Kink Consultant Podcast, where we're turning up the heat on all things kink and dating, relationships, and pop culture. So close the door, plug in your headphones, and let's get down to it. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Kink Consultant. I have convinced Brenda that we can skip our daily meeting because I have to update her on my dating life. How are you?
I'm good, but it's been way too long since we've had an update. So please, let's start spilling. Let's get right into the tea.
We have a ton of new listeners now. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Amanda's BizDom. At least that's what I like to call myself because I'm the one that helps her get all of the business stuff out and into the open.
Yeah, that is what you do. Are you single, engaged, married?
I have been married for 1,001 years. My husband and I have been together almost for 20 years now. It's a long time. I've never really dated, which is actually the interesting thing. I'm sitting here listening to you talk about all of the experiences that you've had, and I never went through that. Me listening to you talk about all this stuff, it's so interesting because, you go from someone who's out and experiencing life to someone like me I used to think vanilla. Now that I know you, not so much.
Also, I know you're a big book talk girly. So
yes, I am. I love my spicy books. And so, it's one thing to read about it, but to actually hear fun, spicy stories in real life is like a whole other thing.
Totally feel you on that. That's why I like sharing it too, because I'm like, a lot of us are out here doing this. It's just, we might not be talking about it. So I have a lot to talk about today. And you are my BizDom. But just for me, everyone else, you're their business manager. Do you know I'm going to a spanking party next weekend?
No way. Okay, tell me more.
So obviously spanking is my fetish, and it's a party called Oasis, and it's actually happening the 14th, probably the day this episode is out. It finishes on the Monday. And I'm talking to one of the people, like a disciplinarian, I guess that's what they go by. And he was like, I saw your stories. And you don't seem to be working. And I was like, fuck. I need to be careful of what I post, but I really don't. Because I'm just going to a party full of people who want to spank me. And I want to be spanked by. I mention it too because I want to encourage people to look up parties for what they're interested in. It is so worth getting out into your community.
Okay, based on that, you're telling me that there are all kinds of parties for all kinds of different kinks?
Yes, there are. There are general BDSM parties. There are parties for femdoms. There are parties for spanking. There's rope parties, weekend-long events. And people come from all over the country to go to these. And you should look these up.
That's interesting.
So this one happens to happen in my hometown of Vegas, which is why I've gone to it basically every time it's been on since I moved here. But also there's different ones around the country. I know there's one in Georgia, one in Texas I'm going to in June. I think that when people talk to me about it, I would encourage them to look it up.
It's good to know because honestly, again, I've been out of the dating scene for literally 20 plus years. And so, when you and I have our conversations about helping other people get into the dating world and stuff, my brain consistently goes to how are these people actually meeting other kinky people? Back in the day, 20 years ago, that's not what it was. We were going into a pub, you were going out and literally socializing in front of other people, not with a screen, right? So there's got to be other ways. And that was one of the questions I was going to ask you today was how is it that you're actually meeting some of these people? Because I can imagine it's got to be hard just being on your phone, being sure, you're kinky. How do you look kinky other than presenting implements and stuff or whatever, right?
I put it out there on the dating profiles. I actually am changing it up a little bit. I'm on multiple profiles. So I like to test things. So I'm testing out hey, if I don't mention it, does it change who matches with me? Does it change how my conversations go? And I will say I end up being matched with a lot more vanilla people, and that just doesn't work for me. So I'm kind of moving away from the app I have a vanilla profile on, not because the app's not great, more because my profile isn't set up for what I want. And that makes me less engaged. I think that that's probably a common thing. All right, where did we leave things? The easiest one to knock out, I think, is 58, okay?
Okay, let's do it.
So I saw him in New York, and we had a good date, right? But I asked him, so what type of business are you doing in Vegas? And he told me this elaborate story of this big, very expensive deal. And I just didn't believe it. But also, it wasn't just that. The chemistry kind of wasn't there for me, even though he was definitely feeling it. I was like, no. So I left it a few days, talked a little bit more. He was so sweet. He was a really nice guy. When I met up with him, he got me chocolate and he brought chocolate for my family. Not because I was in New York when I saw him. I end things with him. And then this was the craziest thing. A few weeks later, I got a Google notification basically outlining the exact same story he had told me. And I was like, oh my God, you really were trying to make that huge acquisition. I didn't tell him, I didn't believe him, thank God. The chemistry wasn't there, and I don't care how much money he has. I just could not believe when I realized his story was true.
But you know what, though? I think maybe there's something there that, like, at the back of your brain, this is too Christian Grey. The lines are too much. I can't.
I just felt like it didn't feel sincere. And even if that story was real, which it would seem based on the Google article and then subsequent articles I read, I was like, holy crap, this man was not feeding me a line. He was 100% serious.
It's hard not to be cynical in today's world. I could not
Yeah.
imagine not, like there's so many times where in our daily lives, people are telling us stuff that you're like, oh, okay, buddy.
Yeah, so I ended it and I don't regret it. It hasn't even
Good.
crossed my mind since. Okay, Target guy. This one, I think we might just be better as play partners. I don't want to be too mean about him. I don't think the Target thing was a fluke. I don't think he can plan a date.
Oh,
Like plot twist slash not at all.
I thought it was a quirky thing that he was like, oh dear, let's just go to Target and walk around for like, okay, so legit cannot plan a date.
No, round 2 didn't go well, but it was like a lot of things, okay? I kind of was like, listen, we've been talking for 6 weeks. We need to meet. And he was like, well, I guess, if you really want to do this, you could pick me up from the airport. I think he may have been joking. I was like, okay, I'll pick you up from the airport. So I did pick him up from the airport and then took him to his house. So it was a weird second date. We went for sushi. I said I wanted sushi, so he found us a sushi spot. That alone wasn't enough. He ended up bringing me chili, which was really nice. He came over one day after that and brought me chili. I can't complain about the food. He's a really good cook. I just wanted to go out and do something instead.
Yeah.
I said it, but he didn't really take it a step further. I guess he said he thought I was joking, and I was like, what? I sent a screenshot back. I was like, show me where this didn't seem serious. And he couldn't. I was like, I wanted to go out and do something. I don't just want to sit around. I guess, I don't know what it was, but I needed something else.
I'm going to play devil's advocate and say, I know you, and I know that you love the nightlife. I know that you love excitement. I know that you want to be in the party. Let's call it that. You want to be in the activity. And I feel that maybe that's just not his lifestyle. He travels a lot for work. He's literally on the go all the time. So on his off time, he wants to be relaxed. He wants to be at home. But that's an outside perspective.
You're pretty right. I wouldn't say that I handled it well. I feel pretty guilty. I think when it ended, I was frustrated as opposed to being my normal self. He did not take anything seriously. I felt like I wasn't being met. If I was trying to have a serious conversation, he could not go to those depths for an emotional, serious conversation. So the way it ended was just, it was back and forth. But also the most he had probably texted me and the most on texting me he had been was when we were arguing. And I'm saying, this is why it's not working for me. He's like, well, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's going back and forth. And I'm like, if this is the best, most active conversation we have, that also might just be the type of thing we would have, and I don't want any part.
No, thank you.
So,
and the fact too that you're going at him and you're saying you're not being combative. You're just saying, I'm really sorry, but here's my feelings. And he's returning with, well, here's my explanation for doing this to you. Just that in itself, it will always be one-sided.
That's exactly how I felt. And I said, I genuinely feel like I'm chasing. I did feel like I was chasing, so it didn't feel mutual. But to him, he felt like, oh, but we're texting every day. I guess
he's being literal and we're being emotional. We're tying all of the things into it. And he's just going, but you told me to text you. I'm texting you.
And I just said there was a disconnect. I wasn't interested in finding the bridge to reconnect because I just didn't feel it was worth doing that work together to get there. I'm realizing I travel a lot too. Can't work, but open to being play partners because I know he'd be a lot of fun.
That's interesting. This is my somewhat vanilla person and haven't been dating for 100 years. May that be a bit of a situation because you had played with him at a different emotional level. Emotions were involved. How do you now go back to no emotions?
That's how I feel. I don't feel there was any emotion behind it, so I don't feel anything would change. I'm just removing my intent now because I'm done chasing. That's how I feel. Okay, 77 minutes. This man DMs me a couple of times and I don't respond. And then he sends a joke, right? And oh my gosh, it was about, I said, you can go vote on who you want me to date in the podcast. And he DM'd me and he said, but are write-in ballots an option? Meaning Can he? And I just thought that was so funny. And we went back and forth. Humor is the way to my soul because he was funny. He DM'd me just before Christmas. He was like, I would really like a photo from you for Christmas, like totally clean vanilla photo just from you that's not posted. And I said, I'll send you two, but you have to come meet me for coffee. Knowing that I was going to be in New York, knowing that he lived on the East Coast, not realizing he lived 3 hours away in Delaware. He planned the place to go, what we were going to do. Here's what happened though. He had to work. Not only that, so he's a full-time job. He acquired a business. And he's handling all of that, but still coming to see me. So I'm giving this guy a lot of grace. He tells me, listen, I know I was supposed to come at this time, but I have to work and do this. Can I come on a later train? I said, sure. Like, my night's open, whatever. He comes on a later train. He gets out of the station and he basically makes a series of wrong decisions to get down to where I am. He doesn't know the city like me. He gets on the wrong subway, goes in the wrong direction, further goes in the wrong direction. I'm like trying, a little bit of me is like, oh my God, do men truly not ask for directions? It's 2025.
Universe, what is happening right now? You're doing everything in your power to push him literally further away from me.
And here I am showing up on time. Also, documenting the dates. There are thousands of people watching these stories. Like, people are invested, okay? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I am going to be so embarrassed if I am stood up so publicly, because it's like, it's that high school thing of like, it's bad enough to be embarrassed, but to be publicly embarrassed with
No, thank you.
thousands of people. And I'm talking hundreds of comments, like the DMs I'm getting, like with the advice, solicited and unsolicited. It's overwhelming. But also, I'm not doing anything except waiting. So I'm getting more anxious, being like, oh my God, this is going to be so much worse. And I feel for him too, because he's been so open and honest about everything. He's sharing his location from the moment he leaves Delaware so that I know where he's at in case like the train stops or something and he has no service.
Yeah.
I would see where he was last. So I see every wrong move he makes. And eventually he gets in an Uber and he comes to me and he's super late. And he's so late, he's literally
77.
77 minutes late. You know, it's hard to recover from that. So we have this pleasant date. We do have a lot of fun talking. So I walk him back to the station at the end of it because I have to get to dinner with my family because we were supposed to originally meet at 12:30, and
Yeah.
then it just
All of
progressively
it.
all of it. And then he kind of ghosts me, but I still hear from him from time to time. Like, he eventually reached out and he's like, look, that wasn't how I wanted it to go. I've been super busy, all of these things. And I'm like, listen, 77 minutes, it's fine. I just assumed you weren't into it after, I guess, also the public humiliation for him. But I'm also thinking, no one knows who you are or what
No
you
one
look like.
knows who you are. Yeah.
I'm putting myself on the line here, but that's what I do. And he knows about it and he's known from the beginning. So we still talk. He still looks at my stories. I wouldn't be against him. If he came out to Vegas, I would see him. I'm not organizing another East Coast date with him.
It sounds like you need to find someone close to home just so that you can at least get that initial, like, off the ground. You know what I mean? Have that time together and you're not going the back and forth. But again, it brings it back to the dating online versus dating in person these days too. Like, I just finished listening to our next episode. You talk about stuff like that inside of there, how to meet people
Yeah.
in person and the huge difference between it. So it's interesting. I'm listening to you talk story after story about meeting these men online and having such a hard time forming those connections right off the bat?
I know. It's so frustrating. And then, like, connections happen in the most random places and ways.
Right. So in your last podcast, Zach mentioned something along the lines of getting the vibe off of someone, person to person, right? As opposed to getting the vibe online, like through
Yes.
text messages. Two very different things, because with your text messaging, you can be curated, which is what we're teaching people, how to curate their kinks on their profiles, right? So it's
Yes.
a much more polished look and you can't really get into the nitty gritty. Whereas if you're at a bar somewhere, you
Oh,
can at least see them act a fool in front of their friends.
there's no editing in real life. I make content all the time, but God, I don't send voice messages to anyone because I'm like, I don't need them to hear how many times I say like or anything because I'm also so used to editing myself. All right. So that brings us to mini golf aka never been kissed, aka had sex with you once guy. I don't understand how this person kept talking to me because date one, I'm not big on drinks. So I'm like, let's go for ice cream. And he said, I
Yeah.
think he was like, I really like frozen custard. Can we go to this place? I'm like, I don't give a shit. If it's chocolate and it's cold, I'm in. So we go and I don't know what size we get, but it's really big. He makes a
Sorry.
joke about me not being able to finish it or a bet. I was like, don't make that bet. I will. But I don't. I don't finish this like massive thing of stuff, but we stay talking so long that I eventually get to the bottom of mine. And because we're talking for like 2 hours, I don't know. I do not do that cute girly thing on a date. I actually say to him, this super fit guy who really cares about his health and works out all the time, I was like, are you going to finish yours? And then I grab his cup and finish all of his like an animal, which I'm still like,
Probably what attracted him to you, or the other way around.
he is primal, but I don't think
Girls
he's
can eat.
primal in a way of let me watch this girl eat about like 1,500 calories of frozen custard.
Maybe, but the skinny girl next door only ate a salad, and even that, she ate half of it.
But like also on this date, what else happens? They're closing up. He's like, I think we should go. I'm like, oh, you want to walk around? I love a good walking date. So we walk around and eventually he takes me to my car and, we hug and I'm sitting in my car. I was like, I don't want this to be over. And he's like, okay. His friend gets up at like 5 a.m. I think it's late for him. And he's just like, do you want to go sit in my truck? I'm like, no, I was like, yeah, let's go get in your truck, which is good because he has heated seats and I'm cold. I'm always cold. So we go sit in the truck for a while. I don't know how it ends, but I like get out, go back to my car. I think he walked me back to my car and I drive off. And then the second date, something similar. I'm like, let's go to Denny's again to eat and just hang out and stuff like that. So then we have our third date where I end up crying again. My timing is all over the place. So I'm supposed to see him again before I go away, but I can't because I get strep throat.
Yeah.
And then I fly home early and I'm supposed to see him again. And I can't because I have the flu. So our timing is just totally off. Oh God, I have to tell you something though. I had strep throat when I was flying back from Salt Lake City. And he was like, let me pick you up from the airport. And I'm like, absolutely not. We are not there. Do not pick me up. But on the flight, I have strep throat and I don't know it, but I know I'm really, really sick. And I cannot imagine having to get my own suitcase or get an Uber. And I text him and I ask him to pick me up. I'm like, hey, actually, can you pick me up? And we're not talking that much because I'm tired. I don't feel well. I'm kind of moody. And I'm going, I don't know. I just asked to be picked up. Okay. I didn't say anything. I said, I don't feel well. Can you come pick me up? As I'm walking to the conveyor belt to get my bag, because
Right.
I've checked the bag, all I keep thinking is, please don't have parked and be here. Do not be at this conveyor belt because like I cannot handle that level of dedication,
Yeah.
commitment, niceness. Like I need not that. So I get to the conveyor belt and of course he's standing there and I'm like, fuck, I don't want this. He is
Yeah.
not it. So like, please don't be this person. I can't really talk. It's killing me to talk. He takes me to his car. He's like, do you need anything? I was like, yes, actually lozenges. So we go to like a Walmart, get lozenges, get in the car. Obviously we can't hug, we can't kiss because I'm sick and I know I'm sick, but I haven't been to the doctor yet. I just know I'm like, I think I could be
Yeah.
contagious.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, so he brings me home, like so nice of him to get my bag, takes it upstairs to his and leaves it outside my bedroom door. So I don't see him. I go away to New York for Christmas. We talk all the time. I come back, he offers again to pick me up, and I say absolutely not because this time on the plane, I do have a fever. I didn't know getting on the plane, but and I'm like, whatever it is, I am really sick and I cannot risk getting
Yeah.
him sick. I'm like masked up. I don't tell him. I get home and I say, the reason I couldn't have you pick me up is I'm pretty sure I'm sick. I proceed to have the flu. He's like, can I get you anything? I am not
He's
into,
saying the right things. Like he's being
he's
very
always saying the right
sweet.
thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not my person. And I feel bad saying that, but he's not. So finally I'm better. We've been talking a lot. I want a redo of our third date where I ended up crying. I'm like,
Yeah.
why don't you come over, hang out, we'll watch a movie, just talk and get to know each other, maybe make out a little bit. I'm like, absolutely no sex. Okay. I can't end up crying again. I'm still in a state of like, I don't know how I'm going to be after sex. So he comes over, we watch TV, we hang out, and then we go to bed. I don't understand why this is so hard to talk about. Probably because we go to bed and I've spent 4 days saying like, we're not having sex. Like, I want to get to know you a little bit better. That's where we're at. So he comes over, he eats me out. Brenda, this man's tongue is the most amazing thing I've ever felt. And I don't say that lightly. Like, people talk about being eaten out and it being amazing. And we know I don't have a small sample size. This is pretty
Yeah.
freaking good. And like,
Damn it.
I've been eaten out by men and women. And I'm just like, this is top. not only is it really good, but he's got that primal thing. So, like, I think he's enjoying himself. Like, I really do. And you can tell. And then that puts me at ease, someone who is not at ease about
Yeah.
being eaten out. And it's my own personal thing. I get really nervous as much as I enjoy receiving. Knowing that he's enjoying it, totally different thing. And I don't know what it does to me, but it turns me absolutely fucking feral. I don't know
Yeah.
why. But I decide that the best thing to happen next is sex. Listen, I want to be real with people, okay? I am not saying what I did was right, but this is what happened. I will say this. We had both just been tested, so we both know that we are negative. We're both like hyper aware of where we're at. I played the game of just the tip. Fucking hell, it did not work. And I'm the always wear a condom, always wear a condom. Like, I think about it too. I'm like, oh my gosh, this man is never going to believe a word I have to say because I said no sex. And here I am begging for his
Yeah.
cock. And
Yeah.
he's like, you said no, you said no. I was like, okay, just a tip.
But now he's playing. He's playing into it. I
Oh,
mean, I think he was
he's
playing into
playing.
it the entire time, but
And I don't want to not be credible, but this is why we have safe words. So he and I both have safe words. And I know that if I say a safe word, like, my word is final. But neither of us are safe wording out of this. Brenda, it was so hot.
all
Like,
I can think about is like the orgasm just fucked you up so much.
yeah. And the previous orgasms from being eaten out. And then this. And I have a breeding kink. So, like, I say something about him and he plays into that too. And it just becomes, I mean, we're talking in recent history. This is one of the top 3 sexual experiences I've ever had because I love that it's forbidden. I know I love that the dirty talk is so on point and I completely let myself go. Luckily, he does not completely let himself go and he is still in control of the situation because, again, I'm not playing it totally safe. That is what happened. We were not prepared in the moment. It happened.
It's also real life. These
It's real
things
life.
genuinely happen. You know, for someone to say, I don't know how it happened. Well, I understand that.
But that's why I want to talk about it because I want it, like, I do know how it happened. I know what decisions I made, where it led. I was totally closed off to the possibility of it. Like,
Right.
I am accountable for, like, the decisions I made and just really letting it go. So he comes back over the next night. But this time, like, the jig is up. There's no
Yeah.
pretending we're not going to have sex. We're having
Yeah.
sex. This time it is with a condom, though, because I'm like, I already know myself now. Bring a condom. So we have sex with a condom. Still great. Still getting eaten out a lot. Still on point. Me
So
getting
what's next for your dating life?
like, that is a struggle right now. Like, when you are getting all of your needs met, except for the whole, like, my life plan of where I want to go, how do I encourage myself to go out and date? And I am, but it's not like I'm excited about going on these dates.
I will say 20 years later, there's compromise. There's loads of compromise. There are things sometimes when you have a partner that, look, you're never always going to be on the same page 100% of the time. So I guess the conversation leads to you. How much are you willing to compromise in certain areas?
This is very officially not going anywhere, and we both know it. And it's not this, like, lying to ourselves. This isn't a just the tip lie. This really isn't going anywhere. How do we figure that out and move forward?
The real problem is finding someone else because certain needs are being met here.
And I don't know if it's like you just pause here for a little bit and enjoy life because it's not a bad place to be. And it's exactly what I was looking for. And I can't deny that. I was looking for a friends with benefits situation until I was ready to more seriously start dating. I think my
You
question
have
is,
that now.
do I keep dating right now or do I pause here and enjoy it for what it is?
Keep going. Just even if you don't feel like it, keep going. See what's out
No,
there.
I'm still dating. And I think that, like, one of the things that it's taught me is to be a lot more intentional. Like, I was going on a lot of dates before, and now it's sort of like, if you're going to be worth my time, you have to hit a certain threshold, and I need to be able to
Yeah.
talk to you and have deep conversation. That's what made this week's date really good. I think we had really in-depth conversation. He made this guy from this week tickled my brain a little bit. I think he's at a different intellectual level, like a few levels above me. He didn't make me feel dumb, not one single time, but there were definitely times where I had to ask for a little more clarity on
Remind to Google that later.
No, I just asked. If I don't understand something, I don't want to be lost in the conversation. So it's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
not familiar with this or that. But he was also really aware of things I might not be familiar with. He would just sort of like ask if I understood. And I had no problem saying no, because if I don't know, I'm not going to pretend to.
Okay, well, we could talk more about him.
All right. I want to wish everyone a happy Valentine's Day. And I hope that everyone else is out there enjoying their dating life or their romantic life. And if they are not,
We
How do
wish you as many orgasms as Amanda had this week.
I do wish that for everyone. All right. Have a good one. Thanks, everyone. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone who might find it interesting. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Email info@thekingconsultant.com. Until next time, keep on kinking on.